It is a reliable source. It's what they used to lock us up for January 6th. The same data. The same exact data. Open your eyes to a new world that you never knew existed.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wednesday's night Hump Day show, and this is a continuation of yesterday afternoon's Why We Vote. I'm joined by my Why We Vote co-host Ash in America over on Badlands Media. How you doing tonight, Ash?
I'm great. Do we have the real Clay or the fake Clay? The chat
This
is asking.
Is definitely the fake Clay. Look at that.
Hey man, I had to throw something in the chat, man. That's what makes this new media awesome, you know.
Oh man,
to watch a great show and be able to carry on a conversation, and then to interact with a host. You know what I'm saying?
Get your ass into the head and shave your face. All right.
Hey, look, what time I dropped like at 11 o'clock, wasn't it? Ash, were you still on the space?
11 o'clock sounds about around when I left as well.
Yeah, I left not too long after. Look, my wife got on to me in the morning because she said I was on the phone from 4 till whenever I went. She was already in bed. It was nonstop. I had a meeting, you know, when I had to jump off y'all. And then I know we love Mr. Olson, but just like tonight, and he sent me the emails to the wrong email address. And I'm supposed to follow up over our meeting because I have to explain the technical things to him. But anyway, and then there was the space, which we knew Mike Lindell was going to be there, but then Carrie showing up sort of just.
Yeah, that was a great space.
Yeah.
It grew real big, and we got to drop a lot of truth on a lot of new people. That was a great Twitter space.
Yeah, it was.
I wish I knew some people that were in Carrie Lake's camp that could get her to come on Why We Vote with us.
We'll work on that.
Hey.
Yeah,
I can't say I'm in.
It doesn't look like I'm looking at you, but I am looking at you, Clay.
Yeah, I know. Listen. I've already talked to her about some another place we want her. So
what place could possibly be better than Badlands Daily and Why We Vote?
Hey, y'all stand a pretty good chance at. Listen.
Did you see today's hearing? They had 26,000 people watching. The closest competitor on Rumble was RSBN at like 7,000.
Yeah, because it's the best place. Although I was trying to get a screen capture when John had Trump up with the newspaper up. I wanted
that was shippy. Hey,
I was going to post that on Twitter.
By the way, breaking news: Adam Schiff has been censured. So that did go through. The Democrats are losing their freaking minds over it. Dangerous precedent to set, but hey, the guy lied in an impeachment hearing. He doctored evidence. That can't be tolerated. If a Republican does that, I want the same exact thing. If a Republican doctors evidence and enters it into an impeachment proceeding, I want them dealt with as well. So.
Did you watch any of that debate over whether or not to censure him? It was on. It was going on during the end of the hearing still, but I watched. After the hearing ended, I watched. It was a little weird. Anna Paulina Luna, who's the sponsor of the resolution, was speaking for the Republican side, and pretty much every Democrat showed up to speak on behalf of Adam Schiff. And they were really nasty to Anna Paulina Luna. Nancy Pelosi was looking across the chamber at her, not speaking to the speaker as they normally do, but speaking at Anna Paulina Luna and saying, "You look miserable. I can't believe you're doing this. This is laughable. Nobody's standing up with you." And she was alone. There was no other Republicans that spoke out about why Schiff should be censored. Now, maybe that's because they had the votes locked down, but it was real weird. Like she did great. But it was disappointing that nobody showed up in support of her, and all of these arrows were coming her way from the nasty Democrats.
I don't think any of them wanted to stand up for her because they know damn well that they are at some point in their career likely to do the same crap. Yeah. And they don't want that to be used against them. They don't want to be on the record saying that this is what we should have done. So that's just my 2 cents. You know me, I don't like either party very much, but I definitely lean heavily towards the Republican Party at this point in time, and probably a foreseeable future.
Yeah, I said the same thing. I'm at a women's Republican luncheon, and I said that today. I said, I said I voted more libertarian than anything during the primary. So
I wouldn't have pegged you for a woman Republican, but it is Pride Month.
hey, look,
You can be whatever you want.
You could be whatever you want to be.
They allowed the men to show up too, right? There were plenty of men there,
Aren't they like trying to make cis like a derogatory term now? Like, I've seen that a lot on Twitter and stuff like that lately. I don't know what the story behind that is, but they're trying to make like cis male like a derogatory term.
Elon said it. Elon said cisgender and cis male or cis female will be considered slurs on this platform. He said that yesterday.
Good. Just call me a man, because I am in fact a biological male.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and it came from somebody, I don't remember who it was, but somebody complaining that they spoke out and said, I don't like being called cis. And then the Rainbow Lobby started calling him sissy, like CISSY. And that's kind of how it started. And that was what Elon retweeted when he said this will be a slur on this platform.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, let's go ahead and
Don't hate the player. We didn't make the rules.
Yeah, let's go ahead and dive into this report. So we started going over it yesterday. We had on Why We Vote. We started out with Chris Pritt, who's running for Secretary of State in West Virginia. ChrisPritt.com. Go support him. Grassroots. He's a hand-marked paper ballots, hand-counted paper ballots fan, so that's always a plus. But then from there, we got Colonel Sean Smith on, as well as Clay. For those of you that don't know Clay, Clay is Clay, just give your credentials real quick.
Oh, man. All right. Hey.
You're frozen. By the way, for the tech guy on here, you should have a better internet connection.
All right. Hold on. Let me drop my VPN. Hold on a second.
Oh, that's what always does it for me. If I have my VPN up during a live stream, kills it. Oh, now he got kicked. He got kicked now because when you turn your VPN off, it'll kick you.
Well, I'll be right back.
There we go. Oh, there we go.
Am I back?
Yes.
Right. Hey, yeah, I had to drop it. Look, I don't even know why I bother, because, they're listening all the time. So anyway.
Yeah. So real quick, just go over your credentials.
All right. 20 years, cybersecurity, master's in cybersecurity, bachelor's in computer science, systems major, all the certs. Biggie, 9 years in the voting system test labs. Right. So I know them inside and out, and everything in this Halderman report that's going on that I've known about forever. So it's finally public.
All right. So again, you are somebody that has not only insight into some of the anomalies and discrepancies and vulnerabilities that we're going to cover here, but also you have some insight into why these would not be caught from a testing standpoint, which I think is going to be really important. So Clay, we're going to scroll through here. I know we had gone through it the other day, and I still have the highlighted document from yesterday. So we'll just do a quick review of what we did get to cover yesterday. And first up here, we have in 1.1, we have principal findings. And let me go ahead. You know what? Let me do this. Let me put this report in the chat right there. Go ahead and put the report up in the chat. All right, there we go. All right, so I got the report in the chat. If anybody wants to look it up later, if you want to follow along, whatever you want to do. So we're on page 4, 1.1, and it says, I explain how such malware, and this is written by I should give an overview of the report. This is written by J. Alex Halderman. It was submitted back in June of 2021. He got a machine in September of 2020 and was going through the machines down in the great state of Georgia. And since September of 2020, he spent about 12 man hours going through was it 12 man hours or 12 weeks of 12 man weeks? I think it was 12 man weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he meant to say he just spent like regular work day hours.
Right. For 12 weeks. So he went through these pretty, not even, if you read it, he admits himself many times in this. I think he says, once I found something, I didn't try and find other ways to replicate the same thing. I can do this. This is how I did it. Could you do it other ways? Probably. He said he was limited by the tools that he had, the technology, some of the things that he had to do it. So this is a pretty bare bones investigation that he did. And it's absolutely shocking. So anyways, here we go. He says, he starts out saying, I explain how such malware can alter votes voters' votes while subverting all of the procedural protections practiced by the state, including acceptance testing, hash validation, logic and accuracy testing, external firmware validation, and risk limiting audits. Now, let me see where else.
And if I could be on the big part of that, the biggest part is the hash validation, because this, whether it's Dominion or ES&S or any of them, they do their trusted builds. And that's the biggie. You got to understand, when they say that this is how you ensure the integrity of the software, right? And I've said it since 2008. Every one that I've been able to examine, of course, I could never examine their code that they use to do their trusted test, but I could see some of the scripts they use, the process, and it was highly flawed. And in that statement, he just confirms everything that's currently done is bull. So
you said, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ash. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you said the most important thing that to happen is hash validation. At what point in the testing of the voting systems, when they're being tested for certification, does that happen?
Are you talking about the state of Alabama where it's supposed to happen and it doesn't? Zero for us. Most of the other states where I've talked to election officials, they don't do it, or they allow the vendor to do it. So, Ash, you've been around the technical field, so you know what IB&V is as far as testing. All right, so can I take a minute and explain about IB&V? Because we mentioned that today, because I'm in Huntsville, Alabama. We have Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman. We have these huge major companies that win big government contracts with NASA, with the Army. And so what you do is, if the Army, say, hires a company and you win the contract and they say, hey, build us this equipment or build this software to run this satellite or whatever they do, you get awarded it. But then they have to test it and make sure. It's called IB&V. It's an independent verification, right, of what you built works. They do not let the people that won the contract do that. They award that to a different contractor who comes in and tests it. Why? Because you don't want to have what's called a conflict of interest.
Right.
And they did, the people who presented their talk today, which to the Women's Republican Party was on election, and they use that, and it relates well here in Huntsville. And that's the thing. And that's all that hash validation is. Their trusted build, as they call it. It's just supposed to be the verification. The people who are supposed to run it are your county officials and the state officials. If you look at the EAC election management guide, it says vendors should not be involved with that or that logic and accuracy testing. Those are two things. But who does it? Who does the logic and accuracy testing or is involved in it half the time?
The vendors.
In Maricopa County, ES&S here in Alabama, it's just horrible.
Well, yeah, in Colorado, when they did the test, the logic and accuracy test before the primary recount, the one that had a 54% rejection rate, the people there staffed by El Paso County had no idea what to do. Their message to the public was, oh, this is totally expected. This is what we expected to happen. It was not what they expected to happen. The people were running around and they had to find the people from Dominion. And the people from Dominion fixed the problem.
Yeah. And that's probably in every state. That's what's sad about it. But yeah.
All right. So let's jump down here. It says most robust risk limiting audits can only assess an election outcome. It cannot evaluate whether individual votes counted as intended. Okay. I want to jump down here. We'll get into the meat and potatoes here.
Yeah. I think Colonel Smith gave an outstanding explanation of that. So for anybody who would want more on that, I would go back and watch that first part of the segment where he talked about the risk limiting audits, because I thought, and he always makes it easy to understand.
Yeah, and let's dispel something real quick, because a lot of people were talking about the Halderman report on Twitter, and a lot of people are coming back and saying, well, they did 2 machine counts in Georgia and they did a hand count in Georgia in between the 2 machine counts, the original machine count, the hand count, and then a second machine count. And when you go back and you look at the hand count, David Cross of GAballots.com and Joe Rossi, kind of followed up on David Cross's investigation. The two of them, put out a list of discrepancies, batches that didn't match up, batches that were double and triple counted, batches that were 900 to 60 for one candidate and then triple counted, all sorts of huge discrepancies in the hand count, almost like they were just trying to put a hand count together that would confirm the numbers that were shown on the machine count one, but maybe machine count one wasn't exactly accurate. It was based more on the QR codes than the hand markings, but we'll get into that. Brian Kemp also wrote a letter to Brad Raffensperger, which I believe was pretty much ignored. I don't know that Raffensperger ever addressed it or anything, but Brian Kemp, the governor in Georgia, wrote a letter to Raffensperger saying, "Yo, what's up with this hand recount? These people have some great points right here." And then furthermore, you had Philip Stark, who is the person who invented the risk limiting audit. He submitted a brief, I believe, it was either a brief or a declaration in Curling v. Raffensperger that discredits the hand count that was done there and basically says that it can't be trusted. If you want to read that, I will try and find that and put it up on Twitter or something, because, these are the things that need to be debunked. Halderman and Stark, I'm not saying that they're partisan, but they definitely have not been engaged in what we've been going through with elections. They're more, laser focused on what they're focused on.
Hey, Halderman, except in 2016, right?
Yeah,
in 2016, he was real vocal.
And here's the thing too, because I've dealt a lot with this on Twitter. God, I don't even know why the heck I'm on there. But anyway, as far as when people talk about the hand counts,
none of us do.
Yeah, I mean, I know people wanted me to speak on spaces and all that, but anyway. But the thing about hand counts, and when they go back and they get on Cyber Ninjas, just let me look. I'm going to tell you, everybody knows. I'm not getting paid for the majority of this. I have to say a rate in court, and that's the way it goes and everything, because I can't come off as biased. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm very successful in my career, and the way I get it is off of process improvement, right, and automation. And here's what I'm going to tell you. When you're doing a forensic audit and you get into that, right, you are not going to necessarily pick the best method that's going to do a hand count, right? These are things that need to be established when you're having to deal with these machines. So there's going to be a lot of issues when that's going, but to try to say you rule that out, so we shouldn't go to hand counts at the precinct level is ridiculous. Because I'm telling you, just like next week, Clint Curtis is showing his method in Texas again to a different county. I know I just was on the phone with the gentleman that's organized it. I'm going to speak virtually on that one. But there are Linda Ranch's method in Missouri is awesome. You have to look at your state laws, people get in their community and figure it out. They discussed that today at the Women's Republican thing about options to do this, right? You've got to adjust it and do it. It can be more efficient and more done. Because Brian, I think your point about, hey, they tried to match the numbers, it is a true fact. Because here's the thing, Halderman in the Antrim, Michigan, right? In that case, he wrote in defense of the Secretary of State or whatever to counter the one report. Right. And it was slanted. And that's what Krebs used when he was at the Senate committee. So he's a professor and academic. He is well known. There's no denying that. And he's good at what he does. And he's got a lot of grad students, which that ought to make it easy. But the thing is people got to understand that he's not doing these reports or listing things at any realm. Yes, it's going to up him in status and he'll look good. And I guarantee you he's been getting paid for everything he does, right? So you got to take these objectively. And that's, I want to get that out there, especially to circle back on the hand count things, because when they're done with an audit, it's not going to be like, so when people start bashing that and they bring up these mistakes and how the numbers are different and the deltas, you cannot take that for anything. If you design something at your precinct, you go through the method, you evaluate the method, and you go back and adjust it, you can make it perfect, secure, and quick. And I want to reiterate that because I'm really sick of hearing this early in mail-in voting. And I'm sorry, you got to ring a bell or something at me, or call me Gunny.
No, I want to get Halderman on the show. I will pay you double your rate for double the time. So up to, I don't know, up to like $2,000 or $3,000. I'm not going to pay more than that, but
Yeah.
I will pay you to come on the show and talk about this report with us.
Yeah, the one thing that I think you're touching on this a little bit, Clay, that gets lost in the conversations that we have about our elections is the role that centralization plays, right? We've seen over the past 10, 15, 20 years, the governments in this instance. For once, I say them, and I'm not talking about the communists. Well, maybe a little, but they've spent years passing legislation to move our elections out of our hands, to centralize them first, to the county level. Here in Colorado, they're moving to centralize everything at the state level. They've already had some great success there, but what that does is it creates all sorts of new complexity. Right? We have to now drive ballots all over the county. You have to have transport judges. You have to have, special facilities, and you have to do centralized counts. And that's what makes it so complex. That's what makes them say that technology is going to be easier, right? Because you can never get, 1.7 million ballots counted on election night. Well, you certainly can if you do it at the precinct level, which the average precinct is 2,000 people across the country. But nobody is talking about decentralization. I think I consistently bring this point up because to me, it's one of the most important pieces we have to solve for, is that there's an expectation now of centralized elections at least the county level. And we've got to get it back to the precinct level.
Yes. And you were spot on about that last night. And here's the thing, even when they do that, because all it does is it ruins chain of custody, right? And it's a total, it's like throwing a smoke grenade out there across the field. You're just trying to blur the vision, and it makes it hard to track things. And that's the outstanding point, because guess what? There are still 935. I remember I asked Conrad last night, those precincts still exist in Maricopa, right? But because they offer at anything, like if you go to mine, there's 2 ballot styles that are accepted, right? And the lady pulls the ballot off the tablet, the correct one, based on the card you get after checking in, right? And you fill it out in that. And when you slide it in those stupid tabulators, which I wish we didn't do, right, it'll only accept 2. And that stuff has to be programmed. That's part of the BS that Maricopa put out, where they claim, oh, it wasn't testing and it's not secret, right, and all that. That's exactly, they were trying to do that with provisionals in the early vote, which.
Hey, Clay, we got to get back into the report.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
we're going way.
I'm blaming Ash because she had an outstanding point.
Yeah, tonight is going to be mainly about Georgia, guys. I mean, unless it directly ties in, because we are going to bring up Tennessee at some point, perhaps Michigan a little bit. All right, so here, getting back into the report, Pro V and SLI, and in Texas by statutory, the tests were conducted by Pro V and SLI, and in Texas by statutory appointed examiners. These tests involve source code review and or hands-on testing. Some of the tests raise serious concerns, but only Texas declined to certify the Dominion system. Based on the public test reports, it appears that none of these tests uncovered the critical security issues that I document here. Now, Clay, you testified, or you wrote a declaration in the Lake v. Hobbs federal case, where you said that you were not allowed to get to the point where you could look at source code. You were only allowed to do kind of, over the top or overview type testing. Am I right?
That's correct. And in Halderman's report, he states the same thing. He had no source code review. And here's what I will tell you. Because I just got asked today from somebody, the Secretary of State in Texas does post theirs, unlike Ash, Colorado, which, you heard Colonel Smith, John say last night, it's hidden, right? Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be publicly available. Why it's hidden in Colorado, I don't know, but at least Texas posts them. And what I will tell you is they attempt it, but it's horrible. They don't even do their own tests correctly. I looked at some of the results, and that's why we sort of got to talk about every state. I know this is focused on Georgia, but this is across the thing, and it's not just with Dominion. And that's what people need to take to heart, is that the key points out of the Halderman report. This thing is super duper flawed throughout, and that's shared commonly with ES&S, Heart Civic, Unison, all of them, right? And the points that he says about it can be undetected. He gives multiple ways to get around it. Yep. And so you ask for evidence, it's not going to be there.
Well, the only way it'll be there is with physical paper ballots, counting them, and you've been denied access to that everywhere except Maricopa County, where, oh, by the way, the printer is in their backyard.
Yes.
Just throwing that out there. That's just a statement of fact, not making any implications right there. Oh, yeah. And when you mail your ballot back in Maricopa County, it goes to the printer, not to Maricopa County itself. It stays at the printer until they say, hey, bring the ballots. And then they deliver them for 10 days after the election, as Jan Bryant testified in the Rudy Giuliani hearings. Clay, let me ask you, you brought up, other states and everything like that. When we go through this and we hear, ICX, right? And we hear about these vulnerabilities in ICX, how relevant are these vulnerabilities to other versions of Democracy Suite, ICPs, ICEs,
ICP2s.
Right, the ICP2s. How relevant are these vulnerabilities to, like, is it likely that they exist on other ones, or are they completely and totally different?
No, it's highly likely.
Highly likely.
Highly likely.
So this report here should be considered by any state that's running and look, this again, you could comment on this, not just a Dominion machine, but perhaps other machines as well. Yes. This report needs to be considered.
Hey, shocker alert. Clay learned something today. I thought ES&S had the bigger part of the market. But when you look at it from a state perspective, Dominion has more states than ES&S.
Yep. Thanks to Eric Holder. Thanks to Eric Holder.
Does that apply? Does that extrapolate to counties? Do they have the majority of the counties?
No, this was just at the state level. All 50 states, not 52. Not that I'm corrected, former President
57?
Obama.
Wasn't there 57 states at one point?
How many electoral votes does Dominion control? That's what I want to know.
Oh, gosh.
That's a great. I'm going
to. Brian's acting like he's smart. See, show off.
I'm a Marine, man. We get called dumb, but we're actually pretty smart.
Hey, that's a very good question. But here's people. The plan's in place. Listen, here's the thing. And who was the gentleman that was the libertarian that talked about blockchain?
He went by Fiji.
Yeah.
Blockchain. Go ahead.
I respect what he had to say, but here's what I'm going to tell you, right? And blockchain is good if you're not talking about blockchain voting systems. There are already blockchain voting systems out there, because look, Dominion's going to fade away. This is their plan.
Yeah.
Brian was doing some force recon. He was sneaky Ricky and got up there. And we know this for a fact. Eric's supposedly going away because they don't need Eric anymore. So this is what I'm telling you. If they try to steer you to another technology that's past, Brian, do you still have your props that you showed last night? The paper and the pencil or pen?
Yeah. Well,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. If they try anything but what Brian shows you right now,
this is the only safe way to vote.
Anything past that, he ain't buying it. Right?
You could have just said pen and paper.
Well, Clay, you made a really great point, and I won't belabor this, Brian, because I know we want to get to the substance of the report. But the blockchain voting discussion is, we're usually engaging that with blockchain enthusiasts, crypto folks who love the blockchain and think it's the answer to everything. What's missing and not understanding is that what these folks are lacking in understanding is the entire election machine. Right? We have fake voters, fake ballots, fake counts, as Sean says, and blockchain may have some applications within that machine, but the law that, guides what you can and can't do, what people don't realize is that blockchain voting companies already exist. The blockchain voting companies are out there already designing this process, right? And so when we get to the point, we're all arguing about whether or not theoretically it's a good thing, where could it be applied, et cetera. They're designing the process and working on getting the contracts now. So that's where, when we're talking about blockchain voting, we've got to have a realistic conversation, not we can totally build an election system that's like the Bitcoin blockchain, which was built outside of government intervention. And the government is never going to let you have a decentralized people-owned blockchain to run elections. That's pie in the sky fantasy world when we're talking about government.
When you want to have it for chain of custody, right, and to show the integrity of the data that you store, I'm all for it. When you start talking about putting it in the machine, and that there's a lot simpler ways, and we need for everybody. Because look, if we did a poll right now and asked what is blockchain, I guarantee you the chat would be like, "What?" And
you don't. We don't need to overcomplicate something that doesn't need to be complicated.
That's right.
That's all there is to it. The only reason that you would complicate something like this is to obfuscate the people from understanding what the process is. That's the only reason that you would continue to make this more and more difficult. And we're learning how expensive it actually is to use these machines. We were thinking in the beginning, like you buy the machine, maybe testing every once in a while, and bada bing, bada boom, done deal. Now we're finding out there are Dominion staff all throughout Georgia. There's Dominion staff at all these precincts. Those are hourly wages that are being paid, continuing to update software. It's absolutely unnecessary. Paper and pen haven't been updated significantly in a century, and we don't need to do anything outside of that. All right, let's get back into this report. So reading on here, we skipped down quite a bit. We are now on page 23, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you following along. As a consequence, it says there is no mechanism. Oh, what happened? There's no mechanism for detecting duplicate QR codes, copying ballots. Now, this was terrifying, Clay. A copy of a genuine ICX ballot will be indistinguishable from a second genuine ICX ballot with the same votes. In tests, the ICP accepted ballots copied using an office photocopier. This could allow a variety of ballot box stuffing attacks. So these people don't even need like a high-speed special printer. They're not putting any special markings on the ballots. They're not using any special ink, any special weights. Probably a special weight, but
Brian, Brian, you're naming a lot of good things, but they're all from a security perspective irrelevant.
Right.
Because those could still be duplicated. And this is where the people who have educated, trained in this, like myself, know these things, right? There should be a distinguishable, identifiable, traceable mark within the QR code or the barcode. And that's the thing. They do not do this. And the thing is like he said, even if it was duplicated and we did the things like we had the correct paper and the correct ink, which they used to try to do back in 2008, 2009. It's just like things got weaker and weaker as the years went on, right? But with this happened in Alabama with our DS200s. In Michigan, they turned off the sensor for the secure paper. How much does Runbeck charge the states it works with to get the secure vote paper? And is it
like
even
$1 a ballot? $1.25 a ballot?
Right.
Something like that. I don't.
So that's just setting money on fire if you're turning off the sensor.
That's exactly it. States are wasting money because the systems aren't configured to use the options they have to check it. They're not given the supplies. And then when you get to these things, and this applies not just to Dominion, but to ES&S Express Vote, you can duplicate them here. And we don't highlight it, we don't go into it, but I want to mention Halderman gives a thing where you don't even have to reprint it like that. You just duplicate the image inside the system. Nobody would ever know.
Here's the thing.
I say, give me 50 of these. 50 images are there. 50 goes into the total. It gets on the tape. It gets on the USB stick or compact flash, and we're done, baby. And nobody would know.
So let's not forget that on October, I think it was 15th, Georgia ordered, or October 25th, Georgia ordered 770,000 additional mail-in ballots from Runbeck with no stubs, so they weren't being sent out in the mail, no envelopes, so they weren't being sent out in the mail. They weren't provisionals, because if they were provisionals, they have to have that stub, because when you vote provisional, they rip that stub off, and that's your chain of custody for it. That's kept by the poll manager or the poll worker. And so they ordered these from Runbeck, and we don't really know what they were other than Gabriel Sterling saying that it was in case they couldn't get the machines up and running, but they'd already been running for 3 weeks, I think, at that point. October, I think they started voting in October, well 2 weeks at that point. So, I mean, that's a bad argument as well. But all right, let's get back into this. Keep going down here. We're going to scroll down till we get into the fun stuff. I think
while you're scrolling down, just on the point of the photocopied ballots, wasn't there somewhere, Brian, that a machine accepted a lined paper?
Yes, there was. I think Professor Clements found that in their audit work where somebody literally voted on a piece of notebook paper that they
in New Mexico.
I think it was in New Mexico. I don't quote me on that. And I'm not even 100% sure it could have been in the Arizona audit, to be honest with you. I don't remember, but yes, I do remember somebody finding a notebook, a piece of notebook paper that they printed a ballot on. And I believe it was caught once and it got counted once.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can find that.
Okay, so let's jump into this. Constructing ICX malware. So this is kind of the meat and potatoes of this. This is where, obviously before this, and we'll get into how to circumvent the testing and stuff. But so Clay, this stuff in green is stuff I highlighted. Did I skip over anything you wanted to cover, Clay?
No. We're going on. There's some stuff later on, like the pictures. I want to try to explain to people how easy it is. Maybe if you want to Google, Hack 5 and the Batch Bunny thing. So, because he's all on his
I got Batch Bunny highlighted.
Okay.
I thought that was funny. Okay, so it says here, this report describes numerous ways that that attackers can install malware on the machines, either with physical access or remotely. Once malware is installed by any of these routes, other weaknesses in the ICX, which is the BMD that you vote on, any other weaknesses in the ICX give the attacker complete control over the behavior of the machine and the ability to conceal the malware's presence very effectively. He goes on to say, I explain how such malware can defeat the technical and procedural safeguards applied in Georgia, including the logic and accuracy test, firmware validation, and hash verification practices. I also present working proof of concept malware that demonstrates these attacks. So what Halderman's saying here is not only can we, either do this with physical access or remote access to the machines, install this malware, and I did design this malware, like he's made this malware that can do all these things he's going to talk about, but he says that it would circumvent all testing processes. Logic and accuracy tests, we're told all the time that we do a logic and accuracy test. The public is notified 24 hours in advance before it takes place. And we all come there and we stand there with our Democrat buddies and our Republican buddies and we hold hands and we all say, yay, look, our elections are safe. It counted the machines right. And it's all bullshit. Go ahead, Clay. You want to add anything or did I hit that pretty good?
No, I like it. I'm glad you're using technical terms like bullshit.
Bullshit, yeah. Very technical term.
Hey, here's the thing. Clint Curtis has been saying this for 20 years, right? The programmer controls everything and you can hide it and you're not going to catch it. And Halderman explains this out here. And what you've got to understand, there's a lot of different ways. There's different ways to do the same type of attack on a lot of these vulnerabilities. And then there's a lot of vulnerabilities on top of it. So it's just like, pick it and you can change it. Here's what I tell you. And I know guys that have the business, they sell hardware and then they even demonstrate how to get past their security devices, right? Because they use the tactics. The Chinese were really good at this, right? You change a little bit of your code, you recompile it. It takes Norton, semantic antivirus or McAfee in them. It takes them a couple of weeks because they're all signature based. It's the same thing here, except here you have multiple ways you can attack, right? Multiple attack points. So you really don't have to vary anything up. And all you do, and I know we're talking Georgia and Dominion, but this applies against all these systems. Trust me, over 7 vendors. And I want people to realize that. What you're reading here is specific to the ICSs in Georgia, but this is every component, nearly every component, and nearly every vendor. And it's that easy. And that's the way it goes. I see you got highlighted. Did I hit privilege escalation?
No, but I highlighted that in a different color to remind me. So if you see a different color, there's a reason why, because I
Yeah.
want to
Here's what I want people to understand. There are so many vulnerabilities that people talk, it's standalone. And they say not connected to the internet for a reason, right? That doesn't mean it's not connected to something. And a lot of these vulnerabilities even allow to be executed locally. And you have to understand that a normal user, it's so messed up and so flawed that a normal user could do a couple of actions and make himself an administrator.
We're gonna get into this. You're getting carried away, Clay. Let me.
All right.
Hey,
And I know, and there's more in the Halderman report that goes on this, and we need to.
The lined paper, notebook paper ballot that was scanned through, at least the one that I can find, was Spalding County, Georgia.
Yeah. Oh, it was Georgia. Okay, fair enough. That actually reminds me.
And did you ever see? Did you see the Alabama paper that Angela Shepard?
I did see that.
They had at the summit and stuff.
I did see that.
Paper thin, and we talked about Maricopa using 100-pound paper. Believe me, this stuff wasn't even 5, if anything.
All right, so getting back into this, it says the ICX is subject to multiple means of privilege escalation, which allows attackers to obtain quote-unquote root access, for example, full control of the device. Now, the reason I highlight the privilege escalation there is because going back to Antrim County, when Matt DePerno got access to the Dominion machine up there to do the audit up there with ASOG, that was one of the things that they found, was that there was somebody that accessed this on November 5th, I believe, after the election. They accessed it anonymously, and they had escalated privileges, I think is how Matt defined that. And so, this, when you see that, you're like, oh, they had privilege escalation, whatever. How significant is that, Clay?
It's very, here's the thing. And I'll just use this one as an example because it says root access. So here's the thing. Everybody knows Windows, and then there's the Unix side of the house. And you've got Solaris and Red Hat and stuff, and Ubuntu, right? This is a not Red Hat, but this is C Linux underneath. So root is like the ultimate admin, because when you create your computer, you don't want your kids to be admin, because the next thing you know, you've got all kind of crud on these things. You find out there's porno there and everything else, right? So you restrict them. You give them a regular user account so they can't install a bunch of junk, right? And once you have privileged escalation, that means you went from being a normal user that couldn't install anything or do anything except just use the system for its intended purposes, right? Now you can do whatever you want, and you do unintended purposes, right? So you could manipulate the system. You can make it do the things it shouldn't do. In other words, be a very bad computer.
Okay, so going on here, and keep that in mind, guys, that you can get the privilege escalations. Going down here to 7.1, we are on page 32 for those of you that are following along. It says the ICX does not require applications be signed by a trusted source, allowing the installation of arbitrary APKs. What is an APK?
Okay. An APK, for those who don't know, is like you have a Windows image and you get your computer and you get these little things that it says double click to install the executable. Well, APKs are like the installation for Android devices. So if you have an Android phone, you have a tablet, and basically that's what the ICXs are. They're just a big, huge tablet, right? And so what you do is there's an installation package, and then you'll have little APK files throughout it that run for applications and software. And there is a lot of issues with the way they've implemented this. And just so you know, APKs are a serious concern. And in DOD, they require the install APKs to be removed, right? It was not Dominion, but one of the tabulators, I did a physical bypass, right? I broke the tablet, got past the security kiosk. It was only my lunch break. So I left the lab guy, said, hey, pull these files on. They opened them up. They said, well, what's this APK? They didn't know. Hey, And this is the testing laboratory didn't know what an APK was, right? So anyway, I know, right, Ash?
Yeah, so I want to make sure that this is clear, because I think most people, myself probably guilty of this as well, think that the security of your phone, we're kind of on autopilot, right? If something goes wrong with an app, you uninstall it, you reinstall it, you look for an update, whatever, it's usually fine. But most people that have used a computer before know not to install an executable file unless you know exactly where it came from, right? Why? Because that's in there that's going to modify your machine in some way. This, from an APK standpoint, that's the same concept, right?
Exactly, Ash. And here's a good thing. It's like on your Windows computer, you go in and install, and then you'll get this warning, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes when you try to double click,
Do you want to
because
allow it to make
it'll
changes?
say it's not signed. That's exactly what Halderman's referring to here, because you create this signature file that the operating system can verify, hey, this came from a trusted source. So like if it doesn't come from Microsoft Windows, it says, hey, this isn't legit. Don't install it, right?
Right.
And Windows has actually gotten a lot better about that. And that's exactly what he's referring to here.
Okay,
Good point, Ash.
So again, moving on, page 32, it says widely available software tools allow an attacker who can obtain a copy of the APK to quickly reverse engineer its functionality and add arbitrarily complex malicious logic. By this method, an attacker can alter the original APK to generate a new APK that appears identical to users but contains malicious behavior. This malicious app can simply be installed in place of the real software. Once installed, the modified APK has access to all of the same data, cryptographic secrets, and device capabilities as the original app, making possible a very wide range of attack payloads. The Android platform requires every APK to be digitally signed by the software developer. Dominion could have used a digital signature to limit installation of apps to those signed by the company, which would complicate attempts to install a maliciously modified app. However, my tests show that the ICX does not verify the identity of the signing party. It allows the installation of APKs created, compiled, and signed by anyone. Consequently, APK code signing present no obstacle to installing malware on the ICX. Clay,
Before, I just want to ask Clay, when you answer and talk about this, do you need physical access to a device to be able to install an APK?
No.
Yes. No? Oh, I thought
No.
you did.
Yeah. Probably airdrop that stuff, right?
Hey, here.
I mean, we're air gapped, so you couldn't in our election system. But
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's just like with most of these tabulators, they have these. They have. Yeah, Brian, didn't you send me the picture asking if that was a wireless modem, or?
I mean, I've seen lots. I've seen the Telet modem
anyway. Somebody sent that to me. Look, their boards have the stuff on them, and there's a lot more than just your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth, right? And especially if you talk what's called the LAN cabling, where you plug the wire in, for those to understand. There's NICs on there that they have DRAX. It's for remote administration, right? The things that your PC could be turned on with that type of network card, right? And that's what's bad, is a lot of these servers that the vendors have, they have those type of NICs in them, which is bad, right? And in the DoD environment, you make sure those things are removed or they're disabled or whatever, depending on what you can do. But those type of things, they can turn your computer on, they can access your computer. And the worst thing is, even if you have operating system logs doing all the logging and checking everything, I could go in through that and the operating system would never know it. Never. It's undetectable.
So one story in Georgia that from 2020 that was memory hold pretty quickly was the Brian, you'll remember this, I think, the one county or precinct that the tablets were programmed wrong. They had the wrong precinct loaded onto the devices when they opened them up and booted them up. This is in advance of the 2020 election. And what the reason I remember this is because it was like one morning show that did this story, and then it was poof, it was gone, and you could never find anything about it again. But you had the precinct called the help desk. They had to call the vendor's help desk, and the vendor fixed it remotely.
Right.
That was a Dominion help desk, and it was here in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that gets memory holed and erased from the internet real quick in that election. Let's. Did you want to add something, Clay?
No, I'm just gonna say, put your tinfoil hat on. Now we're talking.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll get into all the circumstantial stuff. We'll get into all the circumstantial stuff once we get through this report. It goes on to say, for attackers to do this, they would only need access to a single ICX, and this is obtaining the real APK. It says for an attacker to do this, they would only need to access a single ICX once for a few minutes. As explained in section 6.2, anyone can forge a technician card that will work in all ICXs, so access to a genuine technician card and PIN is not necessary. In other words, they can forge these cards, and they talk about that up higher in the report. All three cards, the administrative, the technician, and the voter card, they can forge all three of those. It goes on to say such access could potentially be gained with the help of an insider accomplice or by breaching physical security at any point in the equipment's life cycle before it's delivered to the state, while it is in storage, while it is being set up and tested before an election, during transport to or from a polling place, or potentially while in use at the polling place. It goes on to say one-time access to any one of the tens of thousands of BMDs used across Georgia would be sufficient, or to a machine from any of the other states and local jurisdictions that use that BMD. The physical security procedures for election equipment vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and Georgia cannot ensure that ICXs used elsewhere are well protected. Alternatively, an attacker could obtain a copy of the ICX.APK file used to update the ICX software, such as the update that Georgia installed in October of 2020. An attacker who obtained a copy of any one of these USB sticks would have all the necessary information to create working ICX malware. So in other words, Clay, it sounds like even if Georgia got their shit together and completely locked down these machines so that nobody could get this type of access to it, they could go to another jurisdiction that's, maybe in podunk nowhere, that has, maybe one clerk that's a really good friend, a drinking buddy. You go out and hang out with him, and somebody gets access to the machines in a county full of 30 people, but they have a machine, and that access could be used throughout the country.
Yeah, and I know everybody saw me stand up, and I'm looking around because I was looking for a set of my lock picks. Now I'm trying to find one of the alligator clips. Because I actually had to use an alligator clip to get into one of the security cases that held the tablets for the poll books, right? Because
could that be why they teach? Could that be real quick? Could that be why they teach? Go ahead, Ash. It's your story.
Well, it's not my story; it's Holly's story. But they at NAS 2021 NAS in Iowa, they had a lock picking training class for secretaries.
That's what's bad is that they're
NAS is National Association of Secretary of States.
They're trying to make them feel like they're at DEF CON, because that's been going on at DEF CON forever. Believe me, I went forever, and the thing is. I have my own set of lock picks. I have the stuff that sets up a wallet. If you're a security professional and you know all the rules, like in my state, I'm supposed to have a private investigator license. So far, nobody's arrested me. Who cares? But the point I'm trying to make is
now you got a target on your back.
Did we not say these things on the
you
air,
remember,
Clay?
Hey, here's what I'm going to tell you. Just like that, I'll tell you, Dominion, ES&S, I'm going to decompile your stuff and post it. Come get me. Sue me for non-disclosure violations. Because guess what? When we go to court, everybody's got to show their dirty underwear. And so that's the boldness that I step forward with it. That's why I'm not afraid, because they would have already come and grabbed me. Ash, I'm telling you this right now. You know why? They know they're guilty.
Yeah.
And so Clay's off his soapbox now, but here's what I want to tell you. And I know people in the security field that do nothing but physical security. And as I've been deemed a subject matter expert and an expert witness that deals with physical security by the circuit court in Alabama down in Montgomery. Because unlike Arizona, we can have expert witnesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was deemed that. The judge did it because they were trying to object to me answering a question.
So
if you solely, let me make this point, if you solely rely on physical security, you are going to lose. There are counties that have, in Alabama, the one I went to, a population in the whole county of 40,000. What do you think their physical security is like for their systems?
Yep, that's the point I was just making.
They don't have badge. I asked. They don't have badge readers. There's no high-tech stuff. I guarantee you, it would be so easy.
Didn't Harry Hursty go and buy one of these machines at like a scrapyard or something? I mean, with the software still on it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, that's the type of security we have, that access right there. And somebody else bought one on eBay, or Hari bought one on eBay. Right. He bought a Dominion machine on eBay, and he's like, oh, I bought it just so I could show that it could be done. And then I didn't open it, and its chain of custody still intact, I promise you, and reported it.
And this goes on, with anything. And according to our great, attorney Liddy from Maricopa County, I don't know anything about printers, but in the security, there are guys that go around, they get your old computers. They want to do forensics on your hard drives. Everybody that I know I wipe their drives for them before they trash their OPCs when they're broken, because when you're in computer, I work with computers. That's all my mom ever knew, right? She didn't know I was a security guy, and so you do all this desktop support. And I'm only bringing that out because that's the way people are. My friend's dad was going to give his old computer to his neighbor across the street. It still had all his tax information and everything. Ooh. I know. I said, let me wipe this. I'll put an operating system on it, and then you can give it to them.
I wipe mine with.
People don't think about this because there are people that go out and buy printers just so they can play and practice and see what they get off the heads of the printers. They look at the drives. They see what's still left because some of the old memory would actually hold stuff for extremely long times. I mean, there are people out there, the nerds, that really play with this. And you can find this stuff in warehouses because they'll sell it as junk because some people try to take it apart and resell the components, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. And so what the main point, and we need to keep moving, is physical security alone does not cut it, period. Right. You are compromising yourself if that's all you rely on.
Okay, so moving on, it says here, based on my experience, and we're on page 34 now for those of you following along, based on my experience developing similar malware for both of Georgia's DREs and its new BMD system. So DREs are direct record. Why can't I think of what a Diebold DRE stands for? Clay, what is a direct recording? Geez.
It's old, and they shouldn't be. There's none.
I gotta look it up now because I'm getting old.
It should all be ballot market devices. The DREs are gone.
Okay, well, anyways, the DRE, the Diebold AccuVotes, are the old machines that they used in Georgia, and they had to get rid of them because they were insecure. Well, Halderman says right here, based on my experience developing similar malware for both Georgia DREs and its new BMD system, I compare the difficulty of attacking both types of equipment. Qualitatively, reverse engineering the ICX app was much easier than reverse engineering the software used in the AccuVote DRE, which Halderman wrote a report back in 2007 blasting the DRE. And saying, and California decertified as a result of that. Georgia went on to use them for 12 more years. So keep that in mind, folks. Halderman is saying the ICX is easier to reverse engineer than the DRE was.
Hey, okay. and here's an excellent point, because Ash is so on it when she brought up about the state convention of the secretaries of states, and they're teaching them lockpicking and all that. Don't you think that when California found this issue and they decertified it, that when they had that big convention, they would at least broadcast that to the other secretaries of state? Right? Isn't that what you would think? If your state governments, they're spending money on this boondoggle, which is basically supported and funded by the vendors for, what reason? So they're going out there getting wined and dined. It's like the vendor pool at Black Cat, right? That's the more expensive. You go to DEF CON if you just want to get the subject. It's cheap. It's cash only. They're feds all over the place, even though they say they're not. But that's where normal people try to go. If you got some money, you go to Black Cat. I would attend both, so I get to hear everything. It's easy. But the vendors always try to push their stuff off, and they have ice cream. They give you beer, right? They have all these. They have the games and the contests. You know.
Yeah.
You
I
attack
want
the
to
hackers with ice cream and beer. That's how
yeah,
you bribe
but
the
that's what they
hackers.
do, and that's what this Secretary of State convention thing is. It's the vendors selling their
networking.
product, and it's just to snooze them.
They're
You know?
all so it's sponsored by all the vendors,
Yes,
right?
yes.
You've got at that NAS in 2021, you had Runback there. It's where we found out that Wayne Williams was a senior advisor to Runback because his business cards were laying all around. That's where we found out that Matt Crane was on the poster. Literally, his face is on the poster for global mobile voting. And you had Kevin Runback at the bar there. And it is networking. And the lock picking thing, I think, is to make them feel important.
Yeah,
right.
Soldering a circuit board.
You understand it at DEF CON with the lock picking, because that's security people.
But secretaries of state don't need that skill.
Yeah, but for secretaries of states and stuff, it's irrelevant. But here's the main point, that the citizens of Georgia should be irate that because Brian, your point about is, how many years did Georgia continue to use them after it was
12.
identified in California?
12. And they didn't even install the patch that they made for the machines.
If I was in Georgia, the Capitol would be burning down.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I would be so irate.
I said that last week, and I mildly regretted it after, but I don't. This is like, when they're not doing anything to fix it, what other option do you have when your government willingly is obfuscate or just completely subverting your elections? They're ignoring experts. But anyways, let's get back into this.
Before you do, DRE, direct recording electronic, is what
electronic.
It stands for.
I said direct
touch screen,
recording
crazy stupid touch screen, just like
I thought it was direct recording equipment. Same concept. All right, the manual effort required to reverse engineer it was significantly less than I expected, making it possible to alter the ICX app's functionality with relative ease. For these reasons, I conclude that malware is easier to recreate for the ICX system than it was for the old Georgia DRE system. And Clay is nodding his head so belligerently that I'm about to... Go ahead, Clay.
I said it all. If I have to talk after that, something's wrong with you.
You playing some Metallica down there, man, just getting it on. Okay, reading on, it says, for example, in my demonstration malware, which is the malware that Halderman created for this, one place where such malicious logic is injected is in the code that generates the QR code for printing. Through reverse engineering, we located the existing code that constructs the vote data that will be encoded in the QR code. Changing just 2 byte code instructions in this function causes it to pass the data to a function in the new Java package, giving the malicious logic an opportunity to change the data before the QR code is produced. I implemented malicious logic that modifies the QR code so that the vote recorded for a specific yes or no contest is always no. And then it goes on to say the result is that the data in the QR code and the vote counted by the scanner reflects a fraudulent choice I control rather than the voter's intended selection. Malware on the ICX has access to the complete ballot design and could be programmed to cheat in favor of candidates from a specific party, in contests for a particular office, or in particular kinds of elections. For example, it could always favor one party's candidate in U.S. House races during the general election. An attacker could also choose to change only the QR code or both the QR code and the human readable text. Now, on that note, Clay, I'll let you comment here, but I have a video it's a little bit long. It's about a 10-minute video that I want to play for everybody.
What I want to do right now is apply Dr. Halderman, because that's absolutely correct, and it's that stinking easy, and nobody would detect it. It's that bad.
All right, so folks, I'm going to play about a 10-minute video here. I apologize, but this is so important that you guys see this and listen to who these people, who they studied under when they were, doing what they did. Let me bring this up real quick. And where'd it go? Where'd it go? Okay, there we go.
Unclear ballot, which is an attack based on automated ballot image manipulation, which we developed jointly with Matt Bernard and Professor Alex Halderman from the University of Michigan.
That's
If an
Halderman.
attacker is able to breach an election system in order to manipulate the results of an election, they could just as easily get access to these digital images of the ballots. If they were then able to manipulate these ballot images in order to change the apparent votes within them, then image audits would offer zero security whatsoever and would effectively be useless. To demonstrate this vulnerability, we've developed an attack which focuses on automatically altering ballot images to change the votes within them. This attack targets tabulation machines, which have been shown in the past to not be the most secure devices. And in fact, numerous vulnerabilities have been documented in the past, demonstrating how an attacker could potentially infiltrate these voting machines. The strategy of our attack is simple. Alter the votes within a ballot image in a way that is both undetectable and also consistent with the voter's original markings. In order to do this, we leveraged a variety of computer vision techniques operating under the assumption that the attacker knows what the ballot looks like in advance. This is a pretty reasonable assumption to make, considering many jurisdictions publish sample ballots well ahead of the actual elections. The first step in our attack is to extract bounding boxes around the individual races within the ballot. This can be done by using a template match with a blank copy of the original ballot. The next step in the attack is to extract bounding boxes around the individual names and vote bubbles of each candidate. This is typically done with a Huff line transform, which you can picture here in the slides. The final step in the attack is to extract bounding boxes around the actual vote bubbles corresponding to each candidate. This is done by using a series of linear sweeps across the image, once again using pixel intensities to determine the boundaries of the vote bubbles. Once we've extracted bounding boxes around the vote bubbles of every candidate, all we need to do to alter the votes within the image is simply swap the pixels between bounding boxes. So here are a couple examples of votes that we've swapped using this attack. We've also recorded a video demo to better illustrate our attack in action. Before I show this, I just want to clarify that this demo was recorded solely for visualization purposes. The actual attack happens much faster and also has no visual components to it whatsoever. So here we have our target ballot. We first use a template match to extract the individual races within the ballot. Once we've done this, we use a Huff line transform to separate the individual candidates. We now crop out the title of the race from the top candidate's window. Once we've done this, we can extract the bounding boxes around each candidate's vote bubble by using a series of linear sweeps. Once we've done this, we simply swap the pixels inside of these boxes, and we've altered the votes.
So to ensure the versatility of our attack, we tested it across 6 different ballot styles. 4 of these are in use by the largest election vendors in the US. These are ES&S, Hart, Dominion, and also Clear Ballot. So to test our attack, we prepared 720 marked contests using the Bocce systemization, 120 per each of the ballot styles shown in the slide previously. So at the bottom of the slide, you can see an image of a ballot that we would not attempt to alter. As you can see, that it's an overfilled ballot. And if we were to attempt to create a bounding box around this marking, it would overlap with the candidate's name. So because of this, if we were to attempt to swap it with the vote to another candidate, we would be taking part of the candidate's name along with the ballot. And this would be very apparent upon visible inspection. So shown here is the performance of unclear ballot upon each of the 6 different ballot styles that we used. So as can be seen, for the 60 valid marks for each of the ballot styles, we were able to move at least 50% of the marks, except for the case of Hart eScan. And across invalid and valid marks for each of the ballot styles, we were able to move at least 18% of ballot marks. Given if we were to launch this attack, and at this rate, we would have been able to swap the results in 48 out of 51 of the districts in the 2016 US presidential election. The only red districts that we could not have turned blue are Wyoming and West Virginia. Wyoming was won by Donald Trump 68-22, and West Virginia was won by Trump 68-26. However, even if we were to be able to alter Wyoming's results, this would not be realistic, as it would not be believed by the people, by the public. However, in a close election, it is very possible that we would be able to change the results to either one of the candidates. We wanted to emulate the behavior of a real attacker, and a real attacker would want to ensure that they would not be leaving any trace artifacts upon swapping. So we used pretty conservative parameters with this attack. And even with these conservative parameters, we were able to alter around 62,000 votes, which amounts to 34% of the ballots. We sampled 1,000 of these ballots randomly that had been altered, and there were no visible artifacts that we could, just by looking at them, we were not able to determine any visible artifacts. The alteration time for this was 279 milliseconds per ballot, while the fastest hard scan time was 352 milliseconds per ballot, which puts us well below the threshold we need to be at to conduct this attack. However, it should also be noted that we did not conduct any optimization on our algorithm, and if we had done so, we'd further be able to bring down our alteration time. These image audits cannot be relied upon in adversarial environments. But regardless of any of this, to our knowledge, no election vendor in the US has even minimal image detection in their systems today. So how can we protect against this? The best solution is to use risk limiting audits where people are looking at physical ballots. This system is with these risk limiting audits, you ensure that the process is fully software independent and cannot be manipulated at any point. So what do we take away from this? These image audits image audits involve checking digital photos of ballots rather than the actual physical ballots. However, as we have shown, an attacker can use computer vision methods to automatically alter and manipulate these images and change the results to their desired candidates. We implemented this with an EAC certified scanner, the Fujitsu FI 7180 scanner. And this scanner is part of ClearBallot's ClearVote system. And we showed that our attack works across all the ballot styles from all major vendors in the US. The best defense against this is for people to audit the ballots physically, which is why at some point you need to go back to the physical ballots.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Great work. When minor technical question, it seems from what you described that the bounding boxes around
So I think that's pretty much the gist of that.
Yeah, and so just for general knowledge, there, that's for the size of the room, that's like a side breakout. They have shorter sessions because this was specific. Because believe me, I was going to the voting portions of DEF CON years ago before you couldn't fill the large rooms with that stuff. But their points are correct. They were correct about if they had fixed their algorithm, right? They could have got a lot faster times. And people need to understand, they're talking milliseconds, right? And that's
they can do that. Clay, real quick, they can do that hack. They can switch your vote from wherever you voted to another candidate faster than the scanner can scan the ballot. So before it can process scanning the ballot. So they go over the specific numbers, but just in case you missed that, you would not be able to tell the difference. Like the scanned image would be the image that this malware was able to produce.
Okay, I have a few questions on this. So I was going to ask how fast this happens. You said milliseconds.
Faster than you could scan it.
At what point would this happen? At the moment of voting, or do they do this sometime later?
The moment of scanning.
When they're
at the moment of scanning. Okay.
So you don't even need this to be done on all the BMDs. This could be done at the EMS level, right, Clay?
No,
Okay.
Brian. No, this is done. This is done at the tabulator.
Okay.
Right? These scanners, when they scanned it, here's what everybody has to understand. When the scanner scans the sheet of paper, and I'm saying sheet of paper, I'm not going to say ballot. When that's scanned, there's an image created. It's a poor image. It's only like 200 DPI, which is crazy anyway, right? But when they talked about getting the vectors down and all that, that's exactly what the software is going to do. But it looks at that image file. So their hack, it manipulates the image file before it's completed. And then so when the software evaluates the votes and it does exactly what they did, it's going to look for the colored circles at certain vectors and say, okay, this was a vote here. This was for Trump. Oh, they voted for Ash for vice president, and boom, boom, boom. And right. And it'll go on down like that. And so, and that's how the software does. It evaluates the image. Here's the sad thing is most states like Alabama, they don't keep all the images except for if it's a write-in or this or that. They say they don't need them, which from a forensic standpoint and the way the systems work is totally wrong. And I went round and round with our Secretary of State on it. A lot of states do this. Georgia had missing images.
Tons of
their hash files.
Hundreds of thousands of images.
Right. And here's the thing. So Georgia was doing it right, but then they didn't have the hashes, which is the fingerprints, right? That tells you that's legit. But where those kids are doing it, and I'm calling them kids because they're grad students and they're young, right? They are doing it before the hash gets created.
That's what I was about to say is they're doing it before the hash is even created. So
people have to understand that. And they slowed it. This is like when Mark Cook said he slowed his stuff down. Mm-hmm. He slowed it down extremely slow, right? Because sometimes if you write an application, you have to slow it down. I've done this when I developed an app. I had to slow it down so the progress bar would work, and I only did it for like a second or 2 seconds because if it ran, it went that quick. But you need to give your user something to look at, right? Yeah. And that's the way it is with these training things. They slowed that down immensely. Yeah. So everybody could follow. And it's the same thing that Mark Cook did with his script. So you can see it.
And just to be, go ahead, Ash.
Well, I was going to say one of the things that really struck me in that was when he was talking about how if the bubble is overfilled, in the box that they're putting around the bubble, if that's going to create a visible artifact that something has been changed in the ballot image. So instead they teach the algorithm to skip those.
Yes.
That to me was pretty fascinating that it's that advanced. And then talking about as I know, but as
it's not that advanced.
No, yeah. Let me finish my point. So as they mentioned, they haven't optimized their algorithm, right? And so to me, it's just this like we're never going to be able. It's hard enough for the parts of the federal government that actually do care about threats to critical infrastructure, for banks, for large corporations to attempt to deal with the current threat environment with regards to their technology. We're not even looking at it.
So here's what I'll give everybody a little insight into the financial institution, right? And when I say financial institutions, I'm not talking just your banks. I'm talking about investment companies, all that. Their security is totally different. Walmart, let me tell you, Walmart security is totally different. Yep. And their data doesn't leave Arkansas. They fly security people in, put them up in housing. Walmart does not play around. The financial systems do not play around. And here's the thing though, because that's their bread and butter. So yes, there's been some things with, ATMs and running Windows XP behind them and all that stuff, but it's a totally different realm. Outside of DOD, the only people that really take security seriously are the financial markets. Your medical information is way at risk because that's a whole nother story. But so it's a different realm. The point is people need to understand that they say it's critical infrastructure, but they only did that to keep you from seeing it. Because here's the thing, like those gentlemen said, you have to look at the ballots. Just like they explained today in the luncheon I was at, it takes a court order for you to get to see the ballots. Every state that I've looked at, and there's about 14 of them now, Nobody lets you look at all the ballots. When we do our after our audit, our audit, it's 3 counties in our state, and they're limited. They don't do the whole ballot. They just do certain votes, you know?
So I'm just going to go through and point out some facts here. These are nothing more than facts. Okay. So if you want to sue me, come after me and sue me. In Georgia, we know in the run up to the 2020 election, they did a last minute de minimis update. We know that. We know that because it was de minimis, it had to go through significantly less security testing than it normally would. And it was after the logic and accuracy test, which also should not be permitted. You should not be allowed to do an update, any update after the testing is done, even though we know the testing is bullshit now.
Yeah.
Moving on. In the hearing that Halderman testified to not allow these machines to be used with this de minimis update, or not to deem it de minimis, we know that Eric Coomer testified on behalf of Pro V&V because Jack Cobb claims that he doesn't have security testing expertise or whatever the hell his excuse was. We also know that Eric Coomer, now whether or not Joe Altman is correct in saying that Coomer was on an Antifa call and said, I made effing sure of it, that Trump wouldn't win, I believe Joe, but that's neither here nor there. We also know that Eric Coomer is an outspoken fascist. We know that he is an outspoken skinhead. Whether he thinks it's the cool 80s skinhead that, shaves their head to be cool, that's a direct
He said
quote.
it was about shaved hair and not white skin.
Right. It wasn't about white supremacy. I was a skinhead, but it was like the cool skinheads,
That's not what that meant in the 90s,
So
bro.
are you like a cool skinhead, Brian?
No, I'm a balding skinhead. I'm going bald, so I'm a skinhead because of that.
Hey,
but anyways,
beard,
moving on. We also know they did this update. We know that Eric Coomer was, the guy that was saying, oh, yeah, you got to do this update. It's de minimis. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. We also know that he's on the record on social media saying F Trump and just all sorts of disparaging of Trump, even going as far as saying I think it was something along the lines of my family that likes Trump. Fuck them. I'm out. I think he said something along those lines of F my family. If you support Trump and you're my family, I don't give a shit. You're dead to me, or something along those lines.
He definitely said it about the workplace, that there was no way that he was going to work. That I shouldn't say these kinds of things, but if the people that I worked with didn't think like I wouldn't work there. I don't remember the family one, but I do remember the workplace one.
So now we move into the 2020 election. Okay. We have that last minute update. Now we have machine count 1. Georgia goes blue for the first time in, a long ass time with a president that's absolutely destroying it across the country, except in a handful of precincts, a handful of counties. And all of a sudden now, when we start digging through everything, we find out all of the ballot images from the machine count number 1 are gone from in-person voting. They're gone. The hash validation files for the machine count 2 that we do have, I think we only got like 17,000 out of 144,000. They're all gone. We know that the hand count they did in the middle, which, by the way, the hand count means jack shit because it's in a QR code, not the marked bubble. But even then, the hand count is thrown together so shoddily that even Philip Stark came out and said something's going on here. How much more evidence do they need?
Okay. We need to give Brian a chill pill and because you're right.
Okay, look, Goose Fraba.
That's what's and here's the thing, because even you get to the point about this de minimis changes in the last minute stuff, and I know a lot of people have asked me about these things last minute. Sean agrees. They're not de minimis changes,
right.
And even Halderman in this report says that introduced vulnerability and made it weakened the system. It weakened the ICX to where it was easier to hack. And that's in itself, it flies in the face of everything. These last minute changes, that drove me nuts because, for 9 years, I read through TDPs and about pre-election setup and testing and LNA testing, because the vendors give instructions and user guides to the counties and the states they sell this stuff to. And they're supposed to, they use this, they follow it, they write their own. Believe me, I spent a lot of time correcting the technical data package stuff. They were garbage. I mean, and these people don't even do that. And then they make these changes. When you make a change, you're supposed to go back and retest.
Yeah.
And Halderman, he calls it out. And that in itself, somebody ought to be looked at.
And he says they only did cursory testing, which I believe I read that all they did was all Pro V&V did was ensure that the testing from the Secretary of State was good by comparing hash values, which we know now can easily be manipulated. So,
and they never really looked at all source code. And for anybody who knows programming, if you evaluate or you change code, you have to look at all of it.
Yeah.
You can't take this, oh, the vendor told us what they changed this, and this. So we take 10% and look at that. That's
the vendor told us it was de minimis.
Him nuts. He's a test fanatic.
And by the way, what I was just talking about there with the evidence is only a fraction of the evidence that we have in Georgia. It's literally just applicable to what we're talking about specifically right now. There's infinitely more evidence in Georgia. Okay, let's get back into this report because that wasn't it. that I just played that video. Like that's not the crescendo. This was just the part that it was applicable to. Okay, reading on here, it says, even if the state adopted a much more complex logic and accuracy test procedure, so long as the testing process was publicly documented, attackers could design malware to maximize cheating while minimizing the probability of getting caught. Now, this goes back to what I played last night with Jeff Lenberg when he said, they would not let me in Otero County, New Mexico. Jeff Lenberg, did a presentation to the, I think it was the county commission out there, where he said, I wanted to do a more robust logic and accuracy test and do more ballots. And they said, no, we're only legally allowed to do X amount of ballots. So then he found another place and he thought that they would be able to do it because what his theory is, and it's now confirmed by Halderman, is that you can program the machines to act good on its best behavior for X amount of ballots, which would be your test deck for the logic and accuracy test. And then after that, any bad software, programming, malware, cheating, whatever you want to call it. I think Halderman specifically calls it cheating. He specifically says, hold on, where it says right here, it says much as Volkswagen's emission systems were famously designed to detect that they were being tested by the EPA and to only cheat while not under the test, ICX malware can be programmed to detect and circumvent logic and accuracy testing. For example, malware could be programmed to only cheat on the day of the election, only during specific hours on that day. So not only could it tell you only cheat on this day, it could tell you only cheat between 4 and 8 p.m. or 7 p.m., whatever it is.
And there's a couple other ways too. But I know them, but I'm not going to say them because they're in bad enough trouble. So,
okay. It goes on to say no practical method. And this is the thing that should terrify every single person. And you should quote this and put it on Twitter and quote Halderman with this. No practical method of pre-election or parallel testing can rule out malware-based fraud. Hard stop. That should scare the shit out of every single person. If you don't, that sentence right there, that is the one sentence you should be able to go into court of law and say, Your Honor, these machines are not, they should not be permissible to be used in our elections. No practical method of pre-election or parallel testing can rule out malware-based fraud.
I just want to put a fine point on what the power of this malware is, right? Because when we think about this and we talk about elections, we talk a lot about candidates, right? We spend a lot of time talking about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden or Carrie Lake versus Katie Hobbs. When you think about the power of the ballot initiative, they can do the exact same thing for ballot initiatives, right, Clay? They can program it to make it say no instead of yes and yes instead of no, to swap it that way.
Yep.
Right. So we're talking about, votes on what the abortion landscape is going to be in your state, votes on the National Popular Vote Compact. That was a ballot initiative here in Colorado in 2020 that went the way so that all of our electoral votes go to whoever wins the popular vote. Constitutional amendments are on the ballot and the people are there to vote for them. So we're now talking about them being able to amend we've been talking about it all along, but I'm just putting it in focus. To amend your state constitution, to amend the U.S. Constitution, they can fabricate that consent. They can fabricate that election outcome. It's really, really scary stuff when you take it in context of what Brian just showed, that there's no pre-testing. There's no testing that can detect this.
I know you're not a techie, you know what I'm saying, but you understand risk analysis and assessment. And to me, and when you look and you know what your possible criminals are, right, which is basically your state government, because you have a fraction, because on a ballot, there's limited space to tell about it. And this is how they have people assigned, and they'll phrase it a certain way, just like Alaska got duped, right? And now they have that ranked choice voting. They do that. And that's a bigger target and a prize for the corrupt state or county. And this could go at the county level on anything. And that's because everybody looks for, oh, did my candidate win? But nobody looks at those resolutions. And that is spot on. It's just like attackers don't always put malware on porn sites. They go to the Betty Crocker recipe thing and all that. Why? Because moms aren't thinking, well, I'm not going anywhere bad. I'm going here to get a recipe to cook tonight. And guess what? Now your home computer just turned into a bot, and they're using it to spam 50 other people, right? And that's just the way that was, man. She should get a gold star, Brian. Can you give her a gold star on the screen?
So I just want to say one more thing, because yesterday, if there's folks that didn't see yesterday, we were talking about this, but because of the fact that malware can have this kind of impact, and there's no way to detect for it in the testing, it requires us to really rely upon and trust chain of custody. It requires us to rely upon trusting, pinky promise, right? Trust me, bro, of every person that comes into contact with these machines at every point in the process, whether we're in the election cycle or out of it, right? All of these things, it's Swiss cheese. The security around the machines, the security in the election process, all of it is Swiss cheese. And we're asked, it's never phrased that way. They never tee it up to us to say, hey, you know what? You're going to now have to trust your countrymen a whole hell of a lot more because we're using this system that's super vulnerable. But that's what they're asking of us.
They're not our countrymen.
Yeah.
These were programmed by Serbs. All right, let's get into this. We're going to breeze through this because we already talked about this quite a bit. In the demonstration malware, we identified the code that computes and displays the hash and modified it to simply replace the computed hash value with the hash of the unmodified APK. This ensures that the ICX always displays the official APK's hash, even though it is running a maliciously modified APK. As described in section, and by the way, we're on page 37 now. As described in section 7.2, the ICX app contains functionality to export the currently installed APK to a USB stick for verification. Once the APK file has been exported, its hash can be securely computed using a trusted external device. Exhibit C shows this was the method used by ProVNV, used in November 2020 to validate the software on a small number of ICXs in 6 Georgia counties.
Supposedly.
Isn't it funny, Clay? Like
Supposedly.
that is one of the reoccurring themes in everything that happens with post-election audits. Like more than just, hey, we're going to count box number 36, like thorough audits. In Michigan, they tried desperately to put a stay on Matt DePerno's injunction until to audit the machines until they could get ProVNV up there. And fortunately, Matt did it without them, and they still access them remotely anyways.
So the people who got paid by the vendor to certify that the work was good are now going to go and check and
their own
look
work.
At the work they just certified?
Yeah, they're going to make sure they don't go to prison for
no
treason.
conflict of interest, no issues with that. No,
They
make
did
sure I'm following, crayon eater.
Well, they did it in Maricopa County, and we ended up with millions of files that were archived. We ended up with a query bomb of 33,000 logins that deleted all of the logins throughout the entire election. Okay, so guys, they do I think it's a FIFO, first in, first out. And so when you log in to a system, once you get to so you start at 0, when you log in, you get up to 20,000, and that's the threshold. At 20,001, the first one gets deleted. At 20,002, the second one gets deleted, and so forth. So what they did leading up to the Maricopa or after the Maricopa audit, they query bombed it with 33,000 logins to delete all the login history during the election and after the election, including when Pro V&V did their
because hey, Brian, come on now, because after the election, you got to log in like every hour on the hour,
right,
just to make sure the machine's okay.
Right, but that's illegal.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm not just talking about the bombing of that many logins. I'm talking about the overwriting of the logs in the first place. The log
size. That's been it. I've believe me, I've had that issue to try to explain to them, because they use different configuration checks. Some actually use the DoD STIGs, and that's just a thing that tells you, hey, this is how you configure your system. You do logging, you set log file sizes. Hey, I have a complex password. I just can't put in 1, 2, 3, 4. There's different things that you do, and that's in security, and you check these things. And they all use different types of standards. Some use the CIS benchmark, and like that. And they establish this, but they don't change the default log size, for example, on the Windows systems. And it's extremely low, and it's on purpose, Brian. It's not just the login file. It's all their events. They get overwritten. And so stuff that you should have 3 months for, you only have 30 days if you're lucky. Sometimes I've seen systems only 2 weeks worth of log data they can hold.
But they're required by federal law to retain the logs for the entire process of the election.
Yeah, but we didn't make the logs big enough to go through the purpose. So, oops, our bad.
Whoops.
Yeah. We caught Pro V&V and Secretary of State Raffensperger in a little bit of a lie with a FOIA request that we did, a letter requesting Pro V&V to come and do the audit. And I'm giving an overview here because I don't know exact, but we went and checked the metadata on the document, and it was created when the open records, after the open records request for the request to do the audit. It was created after the open records request. So,
and wasn't there a county that didn't even remember Pro V&V being there?
Well, they also forgot to change the date. So when they did the date that was marked as when the memo was sent to Pro V&V or Pro V&V to Secretary of State was long after they did the audit. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we caught them. I wrote about it on Gateway Pundit, I think. We caught them flat out. There was a lot of stuff, shady stuff. And even when you go back and look at the audit that they did in Georgia, they didn't list serial numbers for the equipment that they audited. It was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting.
It wasn't an audit.
No, it was. I don't even think they looked at the machines, Clay. I don't think they looked at them at all. They didn't put the serial numbers. They did, like, if you look at the audit they did in Georgia, I think it was like 4 pages. If you look at the audit they did in Maricopa County, which was under camera.
Okay, Sean.
Okay.
No, listen, if you would have, you know how many conversations I had to calm him down? The McGregor report.
I get so hot about this, man.
You would have had to been beeping him on this thing. Because he lost his mind. Because if you do this stuff, and see, Brian, you don't do it, but it's that obvious to you. That's how bad it was. How do you think? What do you think it's like for people like me and Sean, who are used to seeing, hey, this is how you do an audit. This is how you do a test report. For us to see that, it drives. Sean goes. And I know I'm talking bad about him, but he goes.
You're not talking bad about him. He's emotional.
I love the man for that, though. That's how true and professional he is.
Yeah.
I know the Air Force probably hated his guts because he held him to a standard, and that's, how it is. You hold your bosses to a standard. They don't like it. But anyway, we get the point, Brian.
All right, let's keep going here. Defeating the external APK, as described in section 7.2. I think I read this right. No, I did not. The ICX app contains functionality to export the currently. Yeah, I did read that. Okay, so we're talking about now being able to put this APK on a USB stick, insert the USB stick, jump down here. It says attacks that change the QR code and leave the human readable portion of the ballot unmodified would almost certainly not be detected by voters. Now, the reason I highlighted that is Halderman submitted another brief in this Curling v. Raffensperger case. And in that brief, he did kind of an impromptu study in Georgia, but he also did a study in Michigan where he had students come in and vote. And what he observed was that I think it was only like 6% of voters actually verified the vote that was on their ballot. So they go on the machine, they vote, do all their thing, the ballot prints out, and they go over and they give it and they tabulate it. Only 6 out of 100 people stopped and said, actually looked at their ballot and said, yep. Okay, all my votes are good. Okay. Now the problem with that is that first off, it's in a QR code, so it doesn't matter. Even if you look at it, it could say Trump and it doesn't matter. It could be a Biden vote and it's all in that QR code. But even if the QR code thing is, gone, we know that they can change the actual vote itself by the video we watched a few minutes ago. So even that's irrelevant. But here's the thing. In order to change an election, right, 6% of people look, okay, they're only going to influence about 4 or 5% of the ballots. Okay. So out of, whatever they cast in Georgia, I think it was like 8 million ballots. How many ballots? 4 million ballots in Georgia? I don't know the exact number. It's only going to be, 4% of that. Well, only 6% of that are actually going to verify their ballot. So I did the math one time and it broke down to 1 to 2 people per precinct. So do you know what happens if you're a precinct manager and just you randomly have somebody come up and they're like, hey, my vote says Donald Trump and I actually voted for Biden, or I voted for Biden and it says Donald Trump, or vice versa, whatever. That poll manager is probably going to say, oh, you made a mistake. Let me spoil this ballot, throw it away, whatever. Here's your card, go vote again, or here's a provisional, whatever it takes. They're not going to say, something could be wrong with the machine. They're going to say you made a mistake. It was only 1 or 2 people per precinct. That was Halderman's theory in the declaration that he originally wrote before this report even came out.
Yeah, and here's the thing that. And like his point on that about only 6% checking, here's the thing, because they're used to the QR code and they think what's printed is going to be true. And if you did a stupid cheat and actually changed what got printed and matched it with the QR code, that would be detected. But here's the thing, you're going to change the QR code and leave that printed there. Because here's again, people, it's not just Dominion. ES&S uses the barcode and not the QR code. It's the same way. I know. I tested, I analyzed my own primary, and 2 of them could not be analyzed. Out of 33 votes cast, 31 were red, 2 could not be. It makes absolutely no sense. If you can read a QR code and a freaking barcode, I'm freaking got to buy you some beer and sit down and talk to you to learn something, because it's not done. And here's the thing. They can print the ballot and fill in the bubble just like a normal ballot. Why don't they do that?
Yep.
Why?
Well, and so the reason I bring this up is because Georgia's getting rid of the QR code for the next election. And, they'll be able to say, well, we got rid of the QR code. Everything's safe now. No, it's not. No, it's not. Now you're going to have 6% of the population check it, and only 1 person per precinct, maybe 2 people per precinct, saying, hey, something's screwy here. And boom, they've switched 5% of the vote. And the precinct manager's just going to say, let me spoil your ballot. You made a mistake. And that's all it takes, because most of the people aren't going to inspect their ballot, and it's going to make it through. And the few people that do, there you go.
Our Halderman grad students made some money on the side, and now the tax going to go.
Wow, hey! I don't want to say anything like that. Even
I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying.
Now. One of them's at Yale Law School now, but I mean, look, they were very clear in that presentation. It was very well. They talked how to remedy it.
I'm just saying but my point is you can just move the attack. That's all you got to do.
Yeah,
they think if it's here, I'll just attack you here.
Well, they also, in that video, if you watch the full thing, it's like 30 minutes long. I chopped it down to 10 minutes. But if you watch the whole thing, they even say, like, even if you figure out a way to remedy this, they'll adapt we'll adapt the attack in order to overcome that. You're never going to be able to defeat our attack. You might be able to defeat it we might not be able to scale it quite as much. But, right now, I think they said, 18%? They could influence 18%. I mean, that wins every single election, like they said, except for 3. I cut out D.C. They said Wyoming, West Virginia, and D.C.
With the unoptimized algorithm in that video, they hit 34%.
Correct. All right, let's get back into this. It says attackers could also choose to cheat by changing both the QR codes and the human readable text on a small fraction of ballots. Although in principle, voters might notice that the printed ballots are wrong, human subjects research indicates that only a small fraction of voters verify their ballots closely enough to notice such errors, which is what we just talked about. Even a post-election forensic audit, if conducted using the methodology that ProVNV applied following the November election, would not detect well-designed malware. So even then, you still wouldn't know.
Because ProVNV don't know how to do a forensic audit.
Because they're not forensic auditors. MSNBC, Rachel Maddow was like, let the professionals, let the certified auditors. That's bullshit. It was all a lie. It was all a lie.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ash. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Can you scroll back up a little bit?
Yeah.
To where your last highlight was. Right. So, Clay, can you so at the end of that video that we watched, the guy was talking about how you need to look at the ballot images to see artifacts, I believe he was saying to see artifact, if there were detectable artifacts of what they'd changed, you'd have to look at the images, not the paper. Right. And then his solution was we need a risk limiting audit. And a risk limiting audit would give us, a security without relying upon software. Can you, this is what we have in terms of post-election audits is RLAs. Go ahead.
Here's what I'm going to tell you right now. The only risk limiting audit that I would ever accept is if Colonel Sean Smith designed it.
But then it would probably not include a 20-sided die.
I'm in a computer science. I'm not an engineer. It's a thing, and I deal with a lot of engineers, and I'm just going to tell you, I deal with guys in engineering principles that don't talk about requirements, right? And I call them idiots. You can think outside the box, but your solution's got to go in a box. I don't care what type of engineer you are. You have to. An engineer fixes a problem. He comes up with a solution for a problem. Whether it's architectural, machinery, anything, you name all the engineering fields, right? So you have to do that. It has to fit in a box, right? Risk limiting audits, it is feasible. They can work. But what I'm telling you is the incompetence at the states, the counties, and with these vendors, right, that help them develop this stuff, it does not work. They're crappy. They don't do everything they're supposed to do. So they're a waste of time.
Well, they're also done by the same people that are being audited.
Yes.
That's the big,
biggest problem. Yeah. All right, let's jump back into this. Attaching USB devices to the ICX. The issue here, the ICX fails to adequately restrict the kinds of devices that can be attached to its USB ports, including the externally exposed USB cable that connects to the printer. I understand, he goes on to say, I understand that Georgia requires the USB port doors to be closed and secured with tamper-evident seals while the machine is in use at a polling place. The kinds of tamper-evident seals typically used in election systems are known to be easily bypassed using commonly available tools. However, this is unnecessary for the attacks described here because the seals present no practical obstacle to connecting new USB devices. They show a sample picture there. Clay, you want to comment on that before we move on to the next hack?
Yeah, and because you got into 8.2 already, huh? All right. See, yeah, I did want to show people.
No, I'm on 8.2. Next.
Yeah, I want to show that. All right. So see here, they show the cables in the back and how they're not protected. So you see how they have that one door open on the side, right? So you're going to go in there, you're going to vote because your privacy is important, right? And so anybody, it'll take a split second to install this. And two, have you passed the Bash Bunny yet? No, we haven't.
No, that's 8.
That's coming up. But here's what I want you to pay attention to. Go to that, scroll back up. Let's show this one. Well, no. Go to page 41. The one at the top is what I want to show. All right. If you want, hopefully everybody can see that well. So here's the thing. You see this little, all right, bring it back up. That little $2 adapter, right? Look at how it's shaped and what it looks like, right? That could easily be changed. And that adapter allows the printer cable to hook to USB. And he actually shows a keyboard in the picture. If Brian moves it up just a little, right? You'll see there's a keyboard there. There you go, right? Here's the thing. You can connect anything to that printer. This is an attack vector. I don't have to put it on the ICX. I could put it here. I can plug anything into there, and that's what you need to see. These type of connections, I can insert that adapter could hold the malware. It could hold a Wi-Fi card, right? If anybody saw Mark's demo and he held up the phone charger, you can do this with a USB cable for the printer. It's easily done and camouflaged. The Chinese did this before with a USB battery charger, and 10 years after the fact, after it went off market, we found it was installed in malware throughout the US. It's an old article. If you Google it, you might find it. And I'm just telling you, these things are undetectable to common people. You think, oh, I see a USB slot and something's plugged into it that shouldn't be there. That's easy. These adapters are putting it into the cable itself is easy. And you see the adapter is what? $2? How much to modify it?
Yep.
And two, once we get to the Bash Bunny.
Bash Bunny. Yeah, we're getting to that. All right, let's keep going. As a result of Georgia's installation of a software update in October 2020, the ICX Android operating system settings can be accessed by attaching a USB keyboard, allowing the installation of malware. It says one way in which users can still switch to other apps is by attaching a USB keyboard and pressing the Alt-Tab key combination, which cycles through apps in the Android overview screen. This keyboard shortcut does not allow the user to switch to any app installed on the device, but rather only to an app that has previously been started. Dominion's 40-step process for installing the ICX software used two sensitive apps, File Manager and Settings, and neglected to remove them from the overview screen. This means these apps were accessible through the use of a keyboard on any BMD where the software was updated according to Dominion's instructions. So Dominion gives you the access. Go ahead, Clay.
Hey, this is sloppy. I'm sort of disappointed, but he's just getting the point across.
I know.
Listen, I don't need no keyboard. I'm just telling you, a keyboard is unnecessary for this. It just takes a little bit of additional code. Remember, I probably giving Mark too much credit because they're cheap parlor tricks he did. But when look, I like the guy. I'm just being honest about it, right? Hey, here's the thing. It's the language that's on the USB. I can plug a USB in your regular storage device, and you would think it's a keyboard. It could be a common access card reader, right? The CAC for those who deal with these tokens. I could put the token on that, right? You can make the computer think about this. The other section you covered were about you can lock the system down to only use a specific vendor and type of USB. The Air Force did this when DOD started to shut down the USB ports because people were just finding USBs in the parking lot, plugging them in malware on government computers, right? It's an old cheap trick. And the thing is you lock it down. The vendors said they were doing that. I proved them wrong in the labs. They didn't. The security that they use any USB, they don't do file integrity stuff. His point here is correct. I'm just telling you, this is a very
It's not the
very bad. It's not the best way to do this.
And he says as much. He says this is not the optimal way to do this.
Yeah,
But I wanted to cover all of the ways that we go through here. So he goes on to say the ICX is a built-in terminal emulator app that is configured so that the user can easily obtain a command line shell with supervisory privileges. After escaping kiosk mode, an attacker can easily launch an app installed on the ICX. The machine contains 20 pre-installed apps, most of which appear unnecessary for its use as a BMD. Most notably, there's a terminal emulator that provides access to Linux Shell, a powerful text-based user interface. Moreover, the ICX is configured such that the terminal emulator can easily obtain supervisory root access privileges by simply selecting quote-unquote allow at an on-screen prompt. With root privileges, terminal commands can completely bypass the Android operating system's access control restrictions and make arbitrary changes to the device data software.
Okay, first of all, it's Linux.
Linux.
Yes. Thank you, Ash, for correcting
I'm
him.
sorry, Linux.
Second of all,
I had a glass of wine at this point, so give me a break. Linux.
Clay, is having root privileges like God privileges?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to keep going until we get to your bash bunny, which is right now. The process described above can be completely automated so that an attacker can install malware by attaching a single USB device to the exposed printer cable for less than 2 minutes. The automated process is simple and fast enough that it could potentially be carried out by a voter in the polling place. To automate the attack, I used a device called Bash Bunny, which is commercially available for less than $100.
Yeah, about 120 now, but yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Joe Biden. A widely used tool for penetration testing, the Bash Bunny looks similar to a typical USB thumb drive, but it acts simultaneously as a USB storage device and a simulated keyboard. Once attached to a target machine, it sends a pre-programmed sequence of keystrokes to execute the attacker's objectives. So this sounds like the plug it in and it does it all automatically.
Yes. And their current Bash Bunny can do it in about 7 seconds.
Well, and it doesn't. So this is, we're talking about you have a charging cord that looks like a charging cord, but really it's a weaponized device that's going to install stuff. This thing you would just have to program?
Yeah, here's the thing. This would be preloaded. It's like, remember when on Conservative Daily, Joe Altman plugged the USB in and then just pulled it out later, right? That's more along this. The Bash Bunny will do it quicker here because the tools
They slowed it down.
Mark was using tools that he had to change a little bit. If I was going to do it on, say, the printer cord, I could just simply go in and replace the printer cord, and it would look just like the other printer cord. Nobody in the county putting equipment away would notice it. But inside it, I would have the wireless transmitter, right?
Which are like the size of a pencil, point, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And for that, so then the next election comes along. I've got the keyboard emulator on there too. I just do everything from my cell phone, right? I can be there outside the building. Hey, no, let's change these. Let's change these. No. And it's done. And they'll never, ever know. Ever.
This is terrifying. All right, we got one more, I think. And then, Clay, if you've got one that I missed. Installing malware remotely. ICX is also vulnerable to an even more dangerous method of malware installation by modifying the election definition files that election workers copy to the BMDs before each election. Attackers can spread malware to them remotely with no physical access to the individual machines. By leveraging this vulnerability, is it leveraging this vulnerability? Whatever. By leveraging this vulnerability, an attacker who infiltrates a county EMS, election management system, can spread malware to every ICX in the county, and infiltrating other systems could allow vote-stealing malware to be spread to all ICXs statewide. So there you go. If you could get access to the EMS system in one of these counties, you could probably infect the entire state. And we know, well, I'm not going to just look into who ran the elections in Fulton County.
And that's one thing. And you've got to understand, just like I explained to the people here, that our new hardened one laptop, the EMS that they gave to all the judges, when it came out, the Windows 10 operating system was already a year past its end of life when they put it on the system. The database, and because we're talking ES&S, this is a different type of database, but what you got to understand is all these systems are the same. There's a little bit of different looks to it, but I'm telling you, we're only dealing with one company, and it's called Evil, right? There's some software differences, but underneath the main structures are the same. And what it is between the database and the OS, I estimated, and I'm saying conservatively, because these were both local and remote vulnerabilities that could be executed, over 300. That's on our EMS system. But not to worry, because they're not connected to the internet. They don't have the
Or
Secretary of
air
State.
gapped.
The Secretary of State even said they don't have the capability, right? Even though they have a wireless card and Bluetooth 5.2 or 3 or whatever it was, right? On the purchase order. They got told to order them with that, right? So the capability was there. Guess what? And then we have them on tape. Well, that was used to transmit the unofficial ones so we can update the voters on the numbers election night. But the official records get put onto a disk and then get onto a computer that is connected to the internet and get sent to the Secretary of State. It's the same laptop.
Yeah.
And once connected to the internet and you're that vulnerable, do you think that they check it? Oh, they'll use the virus definitions that were over a year old to catch it, right? Yeah. You see hopefully people get the ridiculous. And here's the thing. You notice I'm talking about an EMS, right? Election management system. What does Dominion call theirs? What did we just say? EMS? Election management system? Yeah. It's the same crud.
Clay, we're over 2 hours now, and we're at page 48. By the way, folks, we're at 48 out of 96. That's halfway. I want to.
And this is part 2.
Yeah, exactly. And this is part 2 already.
Because Brian wanted to go back and rehash, but anyway.
Yeah, we did quickly rehash. But so Clay, when you look at the Williamson County, Tennessee, erroneous code that they found on there, quote unquote erroneous code. And for those of you that don't know, just a quick ass overview, they found erroneous code on Dominion ICX machines in Williamson County, Tennessee, that 330 ballots were cast in 2 precincts and only 90 ballots actually showed up when they went to go tabulate them. The other, 240, whatever it was, were kind of diverted to another box and flagged as provisional, and they weren't alerted. Like, people weren't alerted. They were hidden in that box, so they thought there were only 90 ballots. An overzealous, poll worker was like, hey, we cast way more than that. And so raised hell. They ended up counting them, found out that there was 330. Long story short, the EAC came in, Dominion came in. They found that there was erroneous code. Okay. And so now I'm thinking, like, Clay, when I'm reading all this, I'm kind of thinking like the same exact code, the QR code signature mismatch that appeared in the system logs in Williamson appeared here. Is this a deliberate attack? Like, could this be malware?
I don't know if you call vendor-created software malware or not.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, maybe you call it erroneous code.
The code is the erroneous code is code that is programmed to error out the results to the desired outcome.
Malware because
and it's somehow passed EAC certification, Pro V&V testing, and logic and accuracy testing. Are we starting to see maybe, like, I'm not going to yell, I'm getting wound up again. It's hot in this room right now because there's so much stuff going on. Are we starting to see what's going on here? Erroneous code pops up, the same exact code in Georgia. And when David Cross brings it up to the state election board and is, going to speak about it and tell everybody, what did the state election board do? They ran out and they got John Poulos, the CEO of Dominion, to come in and talk for an hour. And they gave David Cross 2 freaking minutes. They gave him 2 minutes to explain all this. John Poulos got to speak for 40 minutes, or I think it might have been an hour. He got to sit there and be like, oh, yeah, Dominion's great, guys. I promise you always got the paper ballots that you can check, except you got to go to the Supreme Court in Georgia to check the paper ballots. I mean, this is fucking wild.
But that's the orchestrated theater that they do. So this is the day that I met Sean Smith. Actually, the same day that I met Joe Oltmann in person was in December of 2020, and we had forced a legislative audit hearing. Right, we had finally forced the audit committee to take a look at what was going on with the elections. The hearing was scheduled for 2 hours. It went for 8. The first 6 hours were Wayne Williams, Matt Crane, Jenna Griswold, right, talking about how excellent our election systems are for 6 hours.
The gold standard?
At the end, we are the gold standard.
Hey,
at the end of that 6 hours, Sean was finally permitted to speak. At that point, the press was gone.
Yep.
Most of the legislators had left. They weren't even paying attention anymore. And that was how they treated the hearing was, let's look at the vulnerabilities, let's look at the issues and the evidence that we have. They're not interested in that. The hearing was theater, right? And Sean got time, but he got time at the end of the day when, you know, the media was gone, the people making the decisions were gone, and then of course the push for an audit failed.
Because all they wanted to do was give the media their sound bites, give them the election officials so that the media could be like, oh, Jenna Griswold said it was great, Wayne Williams said it was great, so-and-so
Let's
said
make the peasants think that we care about them.
Exactly.
It's pacifying, right?
Exactly the way they treated
This is like reverse Marxism. We're the proletariat now.
It's just Marxism.
No. I'm saying no. I'm saying we, the people, are like the proletariat now. We're the working class, the piss ants that nobody gives a shit about, and it's the opposite now. Except we don't want, you know, we just want to.
Here's the sad thing, because, you know, exactly what Ash described, a little different setup, but happened exactly here, in Alabama, and it happens everywhere. When I was in Missouri and saw how even the county people that are involved with elections and stuff and that are part of they just like, what? No, you don't understand. Right. Somebody told me I claim to be an election expert and know voting systems, but I don't know their specific one. He said something so stupid that I didn't come back with appropriate answer. But while me and Clint Curtis were sitting in total shock and couldn't open our mouths because we couldn't believe we heard something so stupid, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just they play this game and they come off smug because we're the peasants. You don't know what you're talking about. We know better. Your mom and dad don't know what they're talking about. We know what's best. And it's across our country. And it's time. I mean, people have to stand up and stand on their desk and not take it anymore. I mean, it's just that bad.
Yeah, I just remember, this is a fun fact, in that same hearing, Joe Altman was prohibited from testifying. They kicked him out. They said that he had put on social media that he had COVID 2 weeks before, so he was unsafe and he had to leave.
He's unsafe because he dropped the truth bomb on him. That's what it was. All right,
Brian, did we lose your sound? You're muted, Brian.
No, I muted myself. I muted myself because I'm on Scribd and it wants me to log in. For some reason, I'm logged out and it wants me to watch a short video. But I was going to show the voter discrepancies in 2022 in Georgia that Kevin sent me a long time ago. Oh, here, you know what? I'll just show you the screenshot.
Hey, while you're finding that, can I speak on that? Because
well, go ahead. I found it,
so. that he and David found, and when they lodged their complaint, the belligerent, and can I use the term smartass on your channel?
Yeah, I said
smartass remarks that they replied back with was totally disrespectful from the technical perspective. They were way off, and I wrote a response for them and gave it to Kevin to send back with their response because it was just total BS. It's like they don't care. So David has the right to protest this stuff as a resident, and he does it. And then they just treat him like trash.
Yep.
Like, okay, yeah, but you're wrong. They don't even entertain it.
Yep.
And we've talked about 3 states now. That's what's bad. It's everywhere. And we should not. They work for us.
Yep. You guys can go to gaballots.com and up at the top, click evidence. And David Cross has done phenomenal work.
Yes.
Just, I mean, living and breathing the election in Georgia. And it's wild. I mean, I had that document up right there. You're looking at 19-20% errors almost across the board. I think it went as high as 51% in one county. And the lowest I think that he had up on that screenshot right there was like 9%. Error rates. These are reversal rates, much like we saw in Maricopa County. And they were all at the behest of this QR code signature mismatch problem or something similar to it that we found in Williamson, Tennessee. Malware that made it through EAC certification, Pro V&V testing, and logic and accuracy testing. No problems there. But come election day, they didn't expect us, Clay. They didn't expect us to go as balls to the wall and getting all this figured out as we actually did. They didn't expect that. And I don't know what's going to happen in 2024 because like they're running out of ways to cheat. I know Clay's going to be like, no, they got plenty of ways. And I know you're right.
No.
I know.
No, but here's the thing. People are starting to react and they know it and they're trying to fight everything they can, you know, and it is, here's what I'm telling you. And they're focusing here. We got to focus on the counties in the states where the counties can do it. Put the pressure to get this back. There's a lot more with the early votes and the mail-in voting. So different states have different issues, but getting rid of those machines is the best first step.
It's the only first step. It is literally the only first step.
Yeah. And
it is the only step.
And to get away, Ash has made this point a couple of times. When it's centralized, that's that smoke grenade to give them cover for the cheat. You people have to realize that. You get it back to your precincts. You can start. Hey, and here's the thing: in the smaller things, I talked with election of poll workers that work who don't get paid hardly anything. They complained about that today. But the thing is, they said, yeah, you think about it. We have time when in the laws to go ahead and pull the ballots and count them and already have a subtotal. And then they get another rush period. They could go, we can do this, right? And we've got to remember that it just takes a little bit of thought, you know.
Has anybody done a process audit to see like how much manpower we would save if we didn't have to go through and do logic and accuracy testing, programming the machines, rolling them out, and we just had to ship paper ballots and pens to people and then count at the precinct level? Like, let's take all of that money, put it in a pool, and pay people, like do jury duty, but you do election duty and pay people handsomely. Like people will want to get called into election duty. You get like, one night I'm going to make $800 to go in for one night.
Even, school credit for
high school
civics class.
Oh,
what's that?
Yeah, that was part of Sean's design. Was to have you'd make this part of the curriculum, but you'd also make it so that students were involved in the civics of elections way earlier than when they're eligible to vote. To the other point, I believe Cause of America did or is doing a time study, Brian, to your point about the number of man hours that will be saved. I don't know what the results of that are, but I do know that they did a cost study. I think there was like 8 different jurisdictions that were compared based on their budgets compared to what the precinct hand count procedures that was developed by leading developer on that was Sean Smith, but it's a Cause of America thing. 1/10. It was 1/10 of the cost.
I need to get up with Sean.
I think in Missouri too. Sorry, Brian, for interrupting, but I think Missouri, Linda Rantz, I think because she had a very detailed thing. I've looked at so much stuff I can't remember, but I think she had a pretty good breakdown in savings. What's funny is it went in St. Charles. They challenged that he said it was going to cost more to get rid of the machines. He thinks some outrageous thing. I know that. And one of the county commissioners asked him to see the estimate in the report so they could review it. I've texted him back and hey, because he'll ask me a question and I texted back, hey, so have you seen that report yet? I'm curious, the estimate. Yeah, he hasn't seen it yet. You know what I'm saying? They just make it up because they don't want to give up. It's just bad.
It's their I don't know what you say. It's their buffet, man. They just go in there and whenever they want, they know they're going to win. Okay. Yeah. It's nothing to see here. They take all that campaign funding in. There was something I was going to say. I definitely want to talk to Sean about that, about, the cost and all that. Oh, the one thing I was going to say, the only downside to having kids do it, like high school level kids and all that, is if somebody does get caught cheating, like what are the optics of having to arrest a high school sophomore or high school senior? Like that's going to be really bad optics for that. So I think I would rather go the jury duty route and have election duty.
Yeah, but Brian, here's the thing. If the process is designed well, that would instantly be observed. And the first time the kid's going to say, oh, well, that was a mistake. And he'll be sweating the rest of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm saying because it would be a dumb guy to do it, So I mean,
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna wrap up tonight's show. This was really awesome. We went really long. We might have to do this again in like a week or so, and go through the last half of this. Okay, well, it'll be a lot quicker than this because
Yeah.
we recapped everything.
Hey, and just for and listen, just for everybody, because when it starts into section 7, I believe, and 8 and stuff, you get detailed in the type of attacks, and unless you want me to go totally nerdy and try to bring it back out, and I'm not. I understand that Sean always tells me this. I understand the technical a hell of a lot better than him, but his quality is he can make normal people understand the nerdiness that people like me speak, right? And that's the only truth, because
maybe we'll bring Sean on then.
Yeah, well, because it's a lot easier, because some of these things in order to understand what Halderman's talking about, a lot of that registers in the back of my head automatically, because I know the field. I'm educated in it. I've been doing it for 20 years. It's hard, and you have to remember that. It's because what seems I don't think about, normal people wouldn't understand, right? It's just that way, and it's no offense to everybody that's listening, but that's why if it's paper and pen and count and filled in circles, everybody can understand that. You all have to understand Java code. And that's the other thing too. See, I let that slide. Java being used here. I'm a security guy. God bless Java, Oracle and Java and Adobe, because they have so many vulnerabilities and so many issues. We security people stay employed. So I want to put a shout out to them. They're my favorite 2 applications. And anybody that works in this field knows exactly what I'm talking about.
And here we are using it in our elections. Nothing to see here.
Yeah,
all right, guys. Ash, you want to add anything before we get out of here?
No, I have 2 pages full of questions for Clay, but I also have to go. So we'll save that for part 3.
Maybe we'll do one vote or something again. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, this has been great. And it's
Hey, Ash, if you want to send those to me and me just answer them on paper, and then if you want to follow up, I know your shows are always about taking control of the world, but nothing to do with election. Isn't that what her shows?
Hey,
I don't know.
Elections are a very big part of how they are controlling the world.
Just trying to figure out how to rig the election.
Manufacturing consent.
All right, guys.
Yeah, no, I'll reach out to you on that.
Right.
But no, I just appreciate you, Clay, and I appreciate you breaking down this report in a way that confirms everything that we've seen come up in multiple jurisdictions around the country for the past more than 2 years. We've seen these vulnerabilities. Of course, we're going to get the same answer. Well, there's no evidence that they have been exploited.
Right,
yeah,
right.
I'm sure nobody would ever exploit any of the holes, any of the Swiss cheese holes in our election system. The prize isn't worth it.
We're at the point now where Halderman had. Well, we found the evidence. We found the knife. We found the blood splatter. We found all that stuff. Now Halderman is giving us the body, he's giving us the knife and all that stuff. We found the body, and now it's just like a matter of calling it what it is. It's murder. And like nobody will acknowledge that it's murder. They're like, no, it was manslaughter. It was a suicide. And no, it was fucking murder.
Hey, so here's what everybody needs to do. They need to think on a very simplistic level. So we're all going to think like Marines, right? So they can get down to our level, Brian. I know you're like, oh my God, no. Hey, if you go down to that simple level, 146. And then here's the best thing about what Halderman says. He says repeatedly, this guy, he's good in the field. He's been doing election stuff for a while. He's a doctor. He's a professor at his university. He's good. And what he's telling you is everything that I did was good, but I couldn't catch it all. And it's so bad. There are a lot more stuff out there. I'm confirming it. I'm nowhere the status of him. I only have a master's degree in cybersecurity and all that, right? I'm telling you this. And so you say there's no evidence. A system that bad where you have professionals telling you wouldn't find it if you looked, right? Do you feel comfortable putting the future of your county your school board, your governor, and your president into that type of system. It's easy. Do you need evidence, or do you just need the plain, simple facts in front of you? Mm-hmm. And that's the way I want to close this thing tonight, because that's the biggest thing Halderman did.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys all so much for joining me. Everybody, if you can, please share this out on all your social media platforms. Make people watch this, to make your friends that don't believe the elections were stolen, that there's nothing to see here, and that these machines are safe to vote on. Make them watch this. This is a report from a nonpartisan, folks. All right. And on that note, that's all I got. Stay frosty. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. Make the fortune cookie country pay for this.
It is a reliable source. It's what they used to lock us up for January 6th. The same data. The same exact data. Open your eyes to a new world, which you never knew existed.